Today, we're tackling something huge, prayer. It's something almost everyone does or thinks about, but it's often pretty misunderstood.
Yeah, definitely. And we're not just talking how to pray or when. We're looking at something maybe more fundamental.
Well, for asking why. Why did Jesus himself,
Yeah.
why did he actually need to pray?
It's a really profound question, isn't it? And when you really dig into it, it kind of dissolves some of the purely ritualistic ideas we have about prayer.
We want to get past that.
Our goal here is to unpack what prayer functioned as based on how Jesus taught it and, importantly, how he lived it, moving towards seeing it as, well, relationship and personal transformation.
And the core thing setting this up, the big paradox, is just that. Why him, if he's, God in human form, the source of all power? Why kneel? Why pray at all? If prayer is just asking God for stuff, then for the Son of God, it feels, unnecessary, right?
Right.
Why the tears, the agony we read about? Why keep doing it?
That paradox is absolutely central because the sources show us he prayed constantly. He prayed when he was doing miracles, when people were praising him.
Yeah, peak moment.
And he prayed just as much when he was completely abandoned, heading towards the cross. That consistency, regardless of what was happening around him, it forces you to rethink what prayer is actually for.
So if it's not always about getting God to intervene, what else could it be?
Exactly. What's the purpose then?
And the material we're looking at offers this really powerful reframing. Maybe prayer isn't primarily about, grabbing God's attention. His attention is already there, infinite.
Right. He's always listening.
So maybe it's more about a mechanism for finding your own attention, for aligning your own often chaotic human self with that divine connection that's already present.
That's a great way to put it. Finding your own attention. I like that. That's really the mission for this deep dive today. We want to unpack that secret, the thing Jesus seemed to want us to get about prayer.
That the power wasn't just in the asking, but in the internal work.
Yeah.
The surrender, the alignment.
Precisely. It's like an act of spiritual self-correction almost.
Yeah.
Readjusting your internal compass.
Okay, so if it's about internal alignment, then where Jesus prayed becomes really significant. That's our first big clue, right? The location.
Yes, the location tells us a lot about the intention behind it. He consistently sought out a solitary place.
Somewhere alone.
Yeah. The sources emphasize he deliberately removed himself. Away from the crowds needing healing, away from his own disciples, away from the daily grind, he physically separated himself.
And Mark 1.35 gives us that super specific picture. It says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed.
It's so detailed. Not just solitary, but when? Very early, while it was still dark.
He's sacrificing sleep for this, before the day even really begins.
That choice of time and space, it's clearly deliberate. Getting up that early, it shows this connection was his top priority. More important than rest, more important than jumping straight into the demands of the day.
He didn't wait until he was running on empty at the end of the day.
No, he started by filling the tank, so to speak. Which really reinforces that idea. The power you see publicly doesn't start on the stage. It starts in that quiet, unseen, private time.
And, that dedication, that intentionality, it clearly didn't go unnoticed by the people closest to him. This is one of the most fascinating bits in the source material for me.
What's that?
Well, the disciples. They saw him do incredible things, right? Casting out demons, feeding thousands, walking on water, silencing storms.
Yeah.
Just mind-blowing stuff.
Unbelievable power, yeah.
But they never, ever asked him, hey, teach us how to multiply bread, or how do we control the weather? They didn't ask for the techniques behind the miracles.
That's a fantastic point. You're right. Luke 11.1, it nails it. After watching him pray, one of them just says, Lord, teach us to pray.
Exactly. Not teach us your tricks, but teach us that. Whatever that was, he was doing alone in the dark.
They recognized where it was all coming from. They weren't looking for the how of the miracles. They were looking for the invisible source, the generative force that came before the miracles.
They saw his ministry, his authority, his endurance, and they figured out it flowed directly from those early morning solitary hours.
Yeah, it's incredibly telling, isn't it? They knew the source of his effectiveness wasn't his public speaking style or his strategy, it was the connection.
They wanted the secret to the engine, not just a lesson on how to drive the car.
Good analogy. It's like asking an engineer for the blueprints versus just asking for, shinier wheels. They wanted the fundamental design.
They understood that the power holding it all together, his ability to face down critics, to keep going when exhausted, to stay laser focused on his purpose that was forged in that secret place, in that deliberate practice of alignment.
Absolutely. That foundation was built in private.
Okay, so that solitude, that quiet connection sets the stage. But it wasn't always quiet and peaceful, was it?
Right.
That brings us to maybe a point of tension. How do we square that early morning calm with the agony we sometimes see?
Right. That takes us straight into our next section. We have to move from that quiet dawn picture to the midnight struggle to Gethsemane.
Because that experience shows a totally different side of prayer.
It absolutely does. It demonstrates that prayer isn't always about finding comfort or serene contemplation. Sometimes, maybe often, it's a battle, a really intense internal fight against fear, against doubt, against, the very human desire to just avoid pain.
In the Gethsemane account.
Yeah.
It's probably the rawest, most vulnerable picture we get of Jesus in the sources, wouldn't you say?
I think so. He's on the ground, overwhelmed by what's coming. The cross is looming. And Luke 22.44 gives us that incredibly graphic detail. It says he prayed even more earnestly, and his sweat, it was like drops of blood falling to the ground.
Like drops of blood. That's physical agony.
It is. Medically, it's a condition called a hematidrosis. It can happen under extreme emotional distress or shock. Tiny blood vessels near the sweat glands rupture. So this wasn't just like a metaphor for feeling bad.
Wow.
It was a physical sign of real, intense spiritual and psychological torment. He was fighting the pull of fear, the instinct to save himself. It was a full-on battle.
So prayer, at its deepest level, can involve this messy, gut-wrenching effort. It's not about escaping reality. It's about confronting the absolute worst reality imaginable.
Exactly. But the question then becomes, what was he actually fighting for in that prayer? Was he trying to convince the Father to change his mind, to call the whole thing off?
Did he want out?
Well, the sources show the struggle was internal. He did ask, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. That was a genuine plea to avoid the suffering, a very human request.
Understandable.
But the victory in that prayer wasn't getting the cup removed. The victory was the decision he made right after that plea.
Okay. And that brings us to those words, the ones described as shaking heaven itself, the absolute core of surrender. Yet not my will, but yours be done.
That right there. That's the pivot point. That's where the whole function of prayer shifts in our understanding. Real deep prayer, as Jesus modeled it, is fundamentally about aligning your will, your limited, often fearful human will, with God's will, God's purpose.
It's not about bending God's will to match yours.
No, it's about bending your will to align with His. It's not about changing the ultimate plan. It's about choosing to become a willing participant in that plan, even when it's incredibly hard.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. Because surrender, giving up your will, that can sound a bit passive, maybe even like resignation.
Okay.
Doesn't it remove our own agency? How do we balance wanting things, praying for things, with this idea of your will be done?
That's a really important distinction to make. Resignation is passive. It says, I give up. There's nothing I can do. This is just happening to me.
Right, like defeat.
But surrender, in the way Jesus shows us here, is an active choice. It's saying, I choose to yield my limited viewpoint, my desires, my fears, to your greater wisdom and purpose. You're actively choosing to trust and align. It transforms something that feels forced upon you into a path you consciously choose to walk.
So, he wasn't just passively accepting the cross. He was actively choosing the Father's purpose through the suffering of the cross.
Exactly. It's an empowered choice, not a helpless collapse.
And what was the immediate result? What happens right after he says, your will be done? When he gets up from praying in the garden, the cross is still there, right? The situation hasn't changed.
Not externally, no. And that's the profound lesson about what prayer does. The external challenge, the cross, it didn't disappear, but he changed. He now had the, quote, strength to carry it.
The prayer didn't remove the storm.
No. But it gave him the internal fortitude, the resolve, the deep peace. He needed to walk through that storm, step by agonizing step. The fear was still real, but it was transformed into determination. He gained the inner capacity to face what was coming.
So if you go into prayer expecting God to just snap his fingers and fix your external problems immediately, you might often be disappointed.
Possibly, yeah.
But if you go in expecting to receive the strength, the clarity, the peace to handle whatever reality you're facing, that expectation, according to this model, is always met.
That seems to be the core message. Prayer changes you first, which then equips you to deal with the world.
And that whole process, that surrender, that alignment, it really hinges on how you approach God, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The way you connect. You can't really have that kind of deep surrender without intimacy.
Absolutely, which leads us perfectly into our next section, thinking about prayer as fundamentally about relationship and the incredible power packed into one simple word Jesus used, Father.
Yeah, that one word, Father. It feels like it marks this massive shift, a revolution in how people were taught to think about and talk to God.
It really was revolutionary when Jesus taught his disciples that core prayer, the one we call the Lord's Prayer. He didn't start with some grand formal title. He started with Our Father. We see that in Matthew 6.9.
And think about what he didn't say.
Exactly. To really feel the impact, you have to consider the context of first century Judaism. God was addressed with titles that emphasized his majesty, his power, his otherness.
Like King, Lord, Judge.
Holy One of Israel, Ancient of Days. The whole approach was often very formal, very structured. It involved priests, rituals, specific locations like the temple. There was a sense of distance, of needing careful protocols to approach the divine.
A necessary separation. Almost.
Yes. But Jesus cuts right through all of that liturgical distance. He doesn't use almighty ruler or righteous judge. He uses a term of immediate family closeness.
Father. Or even more intimately.
The actual Aramaic word he likely used was Abba. And Abba isn't quite the formal English father. It's much closer to daddy or papa.
Wow, that's incredibly intimate.
It's the word a small child would use. Warm, trusting, familiar. So that single word choice completely reframes prayer. It shifts it from being a formal petition made in a special building to a direct, intimate conversation you can have anywhere, anytime, because it's rooted in family relationship.
That is genuinely radical.
Yeah.
It basically says the main requirement for talking to God isn't your religious performance or how perfectly you follow the rules.
Right.
It's your status, your relationship. You're his child.
Exactly. And that has incredibly liberating implications for you, the listener. It just strips away the pressure to perform in prayer.
You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to sound super spiritual.
No. You don't need flowery language or a carefully crafted speech. You don't need to shout to get his attention. The only real requirement is simply to show up, to turn towards him like a child running to their dad, you know. Not worried about eloquence, just wanting connection, not fearing rejection.
That's got to be incredibly comforting, especially for people who feel like they're bad at praying or don't know what to say. If you're talking to your Father, you can just be honest. You can be simple. You can even be kind of broken and stumbling over your words.
Absolutely. The source material really emphasizes that when you whisper Father, or even just think it, heaven listens. Not because your voice is powerful, but because the one listening is already intimately invested in you. He knows you.
It shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? Away from the quality of your prayer, how long it is, how well you phrase things, and onto the sincerity of the connection.
Totally. Intimacy trumps ritual. Access comes through the relationship, the established bond. That bond means you're already heard, already known before you even speak.
Okay, so we have this foundation of intimacy, of relationship. How does that then play out in action, in how prayer connects to actually doing things, facing challenges in the world?
Yeah, that relational core naturally flows outward. It changes how prayer intersects with our daily lives, our work, our struggles. Which brings us to our third section, prayer as action. And specifically, positioning prayer not as the thing you do when all else fails.
The last resort.
Right. Not the last resort, but the first weapon, the primary catalyst for action.
That flips the script for a lot of us, I think. The natural human tendency is you try everything you can think of. First, your plans, your effort, your connections, your smarts.
You exhaust your own resources.
Yeah. And only when you've hit a wall, when you're desperate, then you think, okay, I guess I should pray about this.
But Jesus modeled the exact opposite. He consistently demonstrated connection before the miracle. He established that link, that alignment with the Father before he engaged the crisis.
Let's look at some examples because the sources give really clear ones. They make this pattern obvious.
Okay.
Like when Lazarus was dead in the tomb. Jesus prayed before he shouted, Lazarus, come out.
Right, he connected first.
Or when they ran out of food with that huge crowd, 5,000 men plus women and children. He took the little bit they had, he looked up to heaven, gave thanks, and then he distributed it. Prayer first.
The blessing, the connection preceded the multiplication.
Even with the storm on the lake, he engaged the Father before he stood. He stood up and commanded the wind and the waves to be still.
Every single time. Each example just hammers home the point. Every major moment of public power, every miracle started with a private moment of connection.
Think about feeding the 5,000 again. What was his prayer? It wasn't, oh God, we need way more food, please send bread.
No, it was simpler.
It was gratitude.
Yeah.
He blessed and gave thanks for the little bit they already had. That act of connecting, of gratitude, somehow sanctified what was already there and opened the door for God's power to flow through it, however inadequate it seemed.
That's a key insight. Prayer prepares the channel.
And the Lazarus story is fascinating too, because John's gospel tells us he actually prayed out loud deliberately. Not because God needed to hear it that way, but why?
He says it himself, doesn't he? Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here.
So they may believe that you sent me.
Right. So even when the outcome was, in a sense, already assured in his connection with the Father, the outward prayer was still necessary. It wasn't about informing God. It was about showing everyone else where the power came from.
It demonstrated the principle.
Yeah.
The connection is the catalyst. It established the rule. Prayer is the first weapon, the primary engine, not the backup plan you use when you're out of options.
Yeah. It's the opening move, always.
And to really make that stick, to give us a picture we can hold on to, the sources use this beautiful metaphor. Prayer is described as the invisible thread between weakness and wonder.
I love that metaphor. It's so practical when you break it down. Weakness is just our human reality, right?
Yeah, grief, fear, confusion, lack, sickness, impossibility. Like a 4-day dead man in a tomb, that's weakness.
And wonder is the desired outcome. The healing, the provision, the clarity, the peace, the resurrection, the seemingly impossible becoming possible.
So the prayer is the thread, the connection.
It's the essential, maybe unseen, but absolutely vital link that allows divine power, divine resource, divine wonder to connect with our human weakness. It bridges the gap.
Okay, let's make that super practical. Say someone listening is facing, I don't know, financial hardship. That's the weakness. The wonder they hope for is stability, provision.
Right.
Instead of just frantically working more hours or sinking into worry, which are natural reactions, this model says the first step, the primary action, is to engage that thread, to connect.
Exactly. Because the power doesn't ultimately come from just your own striving. It comes through the established connection. The striving might still be necessary, but it's empowered differently when it flows from that connection.
And you have to establish that connection right at the point of weakness.
That's critical, because we often do the opposite, don't we? When we feel weakest, most broken, most ashamed, that's when we often feel least like praying. We feel unworthy or too messy to approach God.
Yeah, you want to clean yourself up first.
But if prayer is the thread connecting weakness to wonder, then the greater the weakness, the more urgent the need for the thread. The first reaction to hitting a wall shouldn't be despair or withdrawal. It should be reaching out, engaging that connection.
That really reframes how you approach problems.
Yeah.
It makes prayer proactive, not reactive. But this idea of the thread, the connection, it inevitably leads us to the toughest part of prayer for almost everyone. The times when it feels like that thread is frayed, or maybe even broken.
Yes. Section 4, we have to tackle this. The inevitable doubt that creeps in for every single person who prays. What happens when it feels like it just doesn't work?
What if the healing you pray for never comes? What if the door you knock on stays shut? What if the only answer you get is silence? Just echoing silence.
This is probably the most essential part of this whole deep dive, because let's be honest, we often measure whether prayer is working by how quickly and positively God answers.
Did I get what I asked for?
Right. But the sources offer incredible comfort and perspective here, because they confirm that even Jesus experienced that silence. He knew what it felt like to feel forsaken.
He wasn't exempt from that feeling of being cut off.
Not at all. That moment on the cross, it's the absolute pinnacle of spiritual desolation, isn't it? He cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
Yeah, that's just the rawest cry of human abandonment imaginable. And yet, he's fulfilling God's ultimate purpose at that very moment.
The juxtaposition is staggering, and if the Son of God could feel that depth of isolation, that cosmic loneliness, then it's pretty much guaranteed that we, in our walk, are going to face times that feel like that too.
We're going to hit silence.
We are. But here's the crucial lesson, the part we often miss when we focus only on the pain of that cry. Even in that moment of absolute despair, feeling utterly abandoned, he did two critical things.
Okay, what are they?
First, he still identified the relationship. My God. He didn't say, oh, in different universe. He addressed God personally. The relationship, however strained it felt, was still the frame.
Right. He didn't deny the connection existed.
Second, he kept talking. He asked the question, "Why have you forsaken me?" He didn't just suffer in silence or turn away. He voiced his pain to God. He kept the communication line open even though it was agonizing.
So he didn't stop praying, even when prayer felt impossible or pointless.
Exactly. And the huge insight there for us is this. Real faith, deep faith, isn't proven just by the quick, happy answers we get. It's proven, perhaps even more profoundly, by the prayers we refuse to stop praying, even when the answers aren't coming.
It's the perseverance. That's the measure of the relationship, not just the instant result.
That's it, which forces us to completely reframe how we interpret silence from God. Silence should never be mistaken for absence or indifference.
It doesn't mean he's not there or not listening.
No. Often that silence is the ultimate test of our commitment. Are we in this relationship only for the good times, for the quick fixes? If we only pray when we get immediate, favorable outcomes, we're basically operating on a transactional level. I give you prayer, you give me stuff.
Like a vending machine.
Kind of. But Jesus modeled a relationship. And real relationships have to endure the quiet times, the confusing times, the times when you feel distant or unheard. Persistence through silence deepens the bond.
Okay, but why? Why the silence? Why the delays? It can feel arbitrary, even cruel sometimes. Do the sources give any reasons why God might seem silent?
They do offer some really profound possibilities. It's never suggested to be arbitrary. Two main reasons emerge, and they're both rooted in God's desire for our growth and ultimate good. The first is development.
Development, meaning God uses the delay to change us.
Exactly, to mature us, to build capacity in us. The delay isn't necessarily a no to the request, it's an investment in the person making the request. Maybe the thing you're praying for requires patience you don't have yet, or humility.
Or resilience.
And the process of waiting, of continuing to pray through the silence, actually builds those qualities. Precisely. The waiting itself becomes part of the answer. God isn't just interested in giving you the thing. He's interested in shaping you into the kind of person who can handle the thing, who can steward the blessing well. So the delay is actually formative.
That makes sense. You need the character to match the calling or the gift. What's the second reason?
The second reason is also about capacity, but maybe from a different angle. Sometimes God says wait or is silent because he's preparing a yes that honestly you couldn't handle right now.
A yes, that's too big for us at the moment.
Yeah. We often pray for big things, huge success, massive influence, major breakthroughs. But if we were given those things instantly, without the necessary internal framework, the wisdom, the character, the spiritual maturity, they could actually crush us.
The blessing could become a burden or even destructive.
Absolutely. Think about sudden fame or wealth without the foundation to manage it. It often leads to ruin. So in this sense, the silence or the wait is actually protective. God is building the internal scaffolding needed to support the weight of the eventual yes he intends to give.
Wow. So silence isn't absence and delay isn't denial. It could be preparation or protection.
That's the perspective the sources offer, which should bring a lot of comfort, really. The core message for you listening has to be, don't mistake silence for absence. He hears every single word.
Every prayer is heard.
Every single one. And maybe even more powerfully, even the ones too painful to speak aloud.
That's beautiful.
It goes back to that Abba relationship. A loving father doesn't need perfectly articulated requests. He understands the heart behind the tears, the unspoken anxiety, the deep groans of the soul. He hears the language of intimacy, even when words fail. That thread might feel stretched thin sometimes, but it's never, ever broken.
Okay, so we've walked through the paradox of why Jesus prayed, the importance of solitude, the battle of surrender in Gethsemane, the intimacy of calling God Father, prayer as the first action, and navigating silence. Let's try and pull it all together. What's the ultimate takeaway? The big lesson Jesus taught about the real power and purpose of prayer.
I think the synthesis brings us right back to where we saw that intense struggle, the Garden of Gethsemane. The ultimate power of prayer, the core purpose, isn't primarily about changing your external circumstances first. It's about allowing God to change your heart first.
Internal alignment comes before external rearrangement.
That's the absolute prerequisite. It flips the script we usually follow. We jump into prayer trying to move the mountains out there. Jesus showed us that the first mountains to move are the ones inside us. The mountains of fear, doubt, resistance, self-will.
And when you pray, like he did with that intentional solitude, that active surrender, that deep Abba intimacy, and that persistent faith, even in silence, what happens then?
Then the sources promise You essentially invite heaven to invade your situation. And that invasion brings tangible results, first internally, then often externally. Chains start to break, maybe chains of fear or addiction. Peace arrives, even if the storm is still raging around you. Purpose awakens or becomes clearer.
So the world might still be chaotic, but you gain that internal stability, the peace to navigate it, the strength to carry whatever cross you're facing.
Exactly. That fortitude is established within you through the prayer connection. That's the primary miracle.
Okay. That leads us perfectly to our final thought, a provocation for you, the listener, based on everything we've explored.
If prayer's really about finding your own attention, about alignment, about relationship, about being ready to yield, then we need to flip the common question we ask about prayer.
We usually worry, is God listening to me?
Right. But we've established he always is. He hears every word, every sigh, every unspoken plea. So maybe the real question isn't, God, do you hear me? The core challenge, the one Jesus' life poses to us, is actually,
are you ready to hear him?
Exactly. Are you truly ready to listen?
Oof. That's the perfect question to leave hanging, isn't it? Because if prayer is ultimately surrender, then being ready to hear him means being ready to accept his answer, his timing, his purpose, even if it looks different from what you wanted, even if it involves waiting or struggle or the cross.
It brings it all back to trust and alignment. But here's the amazing promise that underpins all of this in the source material. The very same power that flowed through Jesus' prayers.
The power of that perfect connection, that complete surrender, that clarity of purpose.
That same power is available and active through your prayers today. That connection isn't just for spiritual giants or historical figures. It's for you.
And finally, just remember that first lesson. The secret place. You don't need a big audience. You don't need a fancy altar. You don't need the perfect words to move heaven.
All you need is a moment alone with the Father.
Go find that moment.